beautiful Shabbos. Today is Maseches Shabbos. Our Amud for today is the Amud for Rosh Chodesh Menachem Av. We are, of course, learning now on Beis Menachem Av, so a Chodesh Tov and a Shavua Tov in this week that we require a tremendous amount of Nechama for us and for Klal Yisrael. And looking forward, please God, to another beautiful week of Talmud Torah, of being mechazek ourselves and each other with Limud Torah, even in this time of darkness for the Jewish people. And we are continuing, of course, with Daf Daled Amud Beis in Maseches Pesachim. And I hope everybody can hear me well. I'm in the dining room here, so this all comes out okay. The Gemara had told us at the end of Daf Gimel Beis, it asked a question, which we pointed out is a question that oftentimes we get asked when people are traveling and schlepping and doing. Towards the bottom of Daled Beis, the Gemara says, Rav Nachman Yitzchak. That was the question from Rav Nachman Yitzchak. Somebody that rents a house to his friend on Arba Asar. Do we assume that the house has been checked? So you pick up the keys on the morning of Erev Pesach. You want to know, is the house checked? So this is Gemara. Why are you even asking the question? The Shale, just ask the guy, did you check the house? Did you do b'dikas chametz? So he says, delay no, because he's not there. You can't ask him because he's not present. So the Gemara wants to know, do you have to go and find the guy to ask him, did you do b'dikas chametz, or can you simply assume that b'dikas chametz was done? And the Gemara wants to bring a proof to this. Amar lehu Rav Nachman Yitzchak. Tani Torah. Rav Nachman Yitzchak answers back. We have a brisa that supports this. Everybody is believed with regards to bir chametz. Everybody's believed. If you say that I destroyed the chametz, which seem to include all of the mitzvahs of bir chametz and b'dikas chametz, even women, slaves, and children, meaning people that usually would not be used as witnesses, admissible evidence in a Beis Din, they have ne'emanos. They are trusted, they are relied upon with regards to b'dikas chametz. Now the Gemara is going to try to analyze this din. And the first suggestion the Gemara gives is to support the answer that Rav Nachman Yitzchak just gave. My time, why are they believed? Top of Daled Amud Beis, la mishum decheskas baduk. Meaning, is it not because we already assume that the house is checked, and therefore if they tell us that it was checked, so it doesn't do anything, we know that it's checked. We're assuming that it's checked. Since the Kasavar Kol Chaverim Eitzel B'dikas Chametz, maybe the assumption is Kol Chaverim Eitzel B'dikas Chametz. Everybody's considered to be a chaver by B'dikas Chametz. What does it mean a chaver? So the Gemara says chaver literally means a friend, but it means a friend of the Rabbanim, meaning somebody that's orthodox. The Tanya chaver shemeis v'yanich megura malei peres, somebody that died and left a bucket, like a basket that's filled with produce. Afilu hein b'nei yoman, even if that produce is b'nei yoman, was picked that day. We assume that they were metukan, meaning that the trumas and maestros were taken from them, and they can then at that point be consumed. Meaning, there's no way that a chaver would have that somebody that's from is a bad word, but somebody that's shomer Torah mitzvahs that listens to the words of the chachamim would have gone out, gone picking his produce, would have brought it back home, and then just left it there and then died. Like, it doesn't make any sense, because Chavrim make sure that as soon as they are finished doing whatever they have to do with picking the produce, they're going to take them from some maestros immediately. They don't leave them lying around because they know that somebody is going to maybe come by and take something. So they make sure that trumas and maestros are taken. That's called being a chaver. They don't leave things unattended. Says the Gemara, umimai, and why? So we say Dilma shani hacha mishum de ka'amri hani atu amira. The honey midi mashasha is based. So the Gemara now deals with an interesting question. The Gemara says, hold up a second. You want to tell me that everybody's a chaver? Everybody's a chaver. We believe everybody. We trust everybody that everybody's a chaver with regards to b'dikas chavetz. So we say, dilma shani hacha. Maybe it's different here. It's different here. Meaning, we're trying to prove that every house that every religious Jew lives in is because is assumed to be checked, because women, slaves, and children are going to be believed to say that it was checked. And that's what's telling us that everybody's a chaver, that it's all checked. That's good. You rent a house from a Jew, it's for sure was checked for comments. So we say maybe the Brisa is telling us totally differently. Mishum de ka'amri hani. No, we only assume that it's checked once somebody tells us. Meaning, and we're going to say we even believe women, slaves, and children to say that it was checked. We can believe them, but without that, maybe no, maybe that wouldn't be. So then the Gemara challenges us. It says, "Atu amir dahani midi mashasha yisbei." But now you're going to assume that the testimony of a 6-year-old, the testimony of a slave, that all of those things are going to be good enough to tell you that it was checked when it wasn't. So how does it work? Says the word elamai. So you have to conclude decheskase bad, meaning these people don't have inherent ne'emanos. They're not trusted to tell us that it was checked. So you have to assume decheskase bad, that it was in fact checked. So now the Gemara says, well then, hi hakol ne'emanim. Then what do you mean we believe them? You don't even need them to say anything. So what the Brisa should have said is hakol kol habatim becheskas bedukim ba'arba asmi ba'ile. What do you mean hakol ne'emanim? Everybody's believed to say it's checked. Just say we assume. Our assumption is that all houses of religious people are checked. What is the statement of nashim avadim ketanim add to the mix if there is a chazaka of being checked? And on the flip side, and this is the previous question the Gemara asked, is and if you're going to assume that it is not baduk, that it's not checked, so then all of a sudden the testimony of these people is going to make it checked. Says the Gemara, elamai. Rather, you have to conclude mishum amir dahani, that the statement of these people does do something. Haloi amri hani loi. If they hadn't said anything, loi, then we would not be able to assume that the house is checked. Says the Gemara, which means that the house is not checked. Meaning the fact that the Gemara is saying, the fact that the Brisa is saying that we believe them means that you need some testimony. You need to trust somebody. Sorry, people are coming in, so I am going to head in this direction so that we don't interrupt the share. My apologies. We're going to find an alternate location. We're going to head downstairs. Welcome to the dining room at Camp Masara. So we're going to head down to the basement where the Hashem Baruch is going to be a little bit quieter. But as we are walking down the stairs, the Gemara is effectively put between a rock and a hard place with regards to this brisa. Do we assume that all the houses are checked? Or do we not assume that all the houses are checked? And what is the statement of Nashim and Avadim and Kedanim going to be ma'ale or marid with regards to the bedikas chametz? Back down here. Okay. So get the stand up. I apologize for the runaround. Says the Gemara as follows. Says the Gemara, no. Instead, our conclusion is, we assume that the house is for sure checked. What are we talking about? We assume all houses are checked. But this house, we know wasn't checked. How do you have a situation like that? All houses are checked, this one's not. Let's say, for example, that you find yourself in a situation that you are renting Airbnb from Jew. You're arriving on the 14th of Nisan, meaning Erev Pesach, and he says to you, look, I'm not there. I'm in Eretz Yisrael. I'm visiting my mishpacha. Pick up the keys from the neighbor. So you pick up the keys from the neighbor. So you know that nobody's been there. So most houses, you can assume that if there's a yid there, he's going to check for chametz. This house, there's a good reason for you to assume that it's not. Meaning this is what's called a reyasa in the chazaka. There's a chazaka. There's a status quo that says it's checked. Now you have a question. The ka'amri hani and the rabbanan are, the ka'amri hani and these nashim avarim v'danim, meaning the kid that you got the key from, the neighbor, says, don't worry about bedikas chametz, but kane. We've already checked it. So now is where you have the question. What would you have said? That the rabbanan would say, no, we don't believe the 6-year-old. Go and do bedikas chametz on Erev Pesach. Kamash malan. Therefore, the Brisa is telling us, kevan the bedikas chametz b'derabbanan. Since bedikas chametz is a din derabbanan, on the level of the Araisa, you could already have sufficed your chiyuv of getting rid of chametz with bittul by saying, kol chamira, all of the leaven, all of the bread that I own, whether I've seen it or not seen it, it's all batel. Since that would have been enough, the rabbanim have the right to tell you that you can believe nashim abanim and ketanim with regards to the din derabbanan. The rabbanim have the right to tell you who you can believe and not, and who you don't need to, you're not allowed to believe with regards to a din derabbanan. Now, we're just brief interlude because this is important to know. Is nashim avadim and ketanim, their testimony is not accepted in Beis Din. But with regards to an issa de eraisa, women, slaves, and children are also believed in certain circumstances, and this is what's called an eid echad neman be'isurim. that a single witness is believed with regards to a case of Isser. And this is an important halacha to know because gentlemen that are watching this Amud Yomi shir, how do you know that the chicken that your wife gives you is kosher? You don't know that. You didn't go shopping. You didn't check that it had a hechsher. You didn't. How do you know? So you believe that you can trust your wife when she says that it's kosher. In fact, the Tosfos points out, but at least the Tosfos points out that the entirety of the institution of Eid Ne'eman B'Yisurim is learned from from a din deraisa that a woman is believed to say that she did bedikas after being an Id and that she went to mikveh. I mean, what? Otherwise, you have to make sure that she did bedikas. You have to make sure that she went to mikveh. That would be ridiculous. The Torah tells you for Safra, she counts 7 days and then she goes to the mikveh. So since she has the obligation to count those 7 days, it must be that you, as a husband, that you have the right to believe her. That's what's called Eid Echad Ne'eman B'Yisurim, that a single witness is believed with regards to Isurim. But this bedikas chametz is not a question of Isur. The Isser part you can do all by yourself. I mean, you can make sure that I don't have any chametz in my home or in my possession. I can be mevatel the chametz. But with regards to the chiv the chiv midrabanan of bedikas chametz, that the house needs to be checked. There's a chiv midrabanan, the house needs to be checked, and that's a mitzvah. The Rabbanan said that there's a mitzvah to check it. So the Rabbanan have the right to say that Eid Echad Ne'eman is not even our question here. But with regards to do we believe that this mitzvah was done, the Rabbanan say that we can trust. With regards to this mitzvah, because it's our mitzvah, we made the mitzvah, and therefore we can define who has the right to tell you that it has already been performed. Says the Gemara further, they ask the question as follows: that a person rents a house to his friend with the assumption, meaning everybody's under the assumption that it was checked, that somebody had done bedikas chametz. And then you show up there, Erev Pesach, you take your Airbnb, and you see that there's like Cheerios all over the floor. What do you do? Mahu, what do you do? What's the din? This is a question in the question of Choshen Mishpat. This is a business question. Is this considered to be a fraudulent sale? Meaning, can you call the guy back and say, I'm not paying you for this rental for Pesach. There was a box of Cheerios spilled on the floor. Clearly, nobody had done bedikas chametz. How do you rent this place for Pesach or not? Says the Gemara as follows. Tashma, Amar Abaye, listen up, Abaye says as follows, this is not a question, but also where everybody checks for chametz themselves. There's no chametz checking service. You have the chevra that go and put up sukkahs. So you pay somebody and they go put up your sukkah, whatever the case is. So there's some towns where there's like a squad of teenagers that go do bedikas chametz for everybody. Everybody pays somebody to do bedikas chametz. That's not our minhag. Most of the world doesn't hire people to do bedikas chametz. So Abaye says, in a place like our communities today, that it's not common that people go and hire somebody to check for chametz for them. Why? Because people want to do the mitzvah themselves. So you assume that the house was checked for chametz. You showed up 2 days before Pesach, you found that it's got chametz in it, right? That it wasn't checked for chametz. Meaning, obviously, it's clean. It's not a question of cleanliness. The house is clean. There's a box of Cheerios that was left on the counter, whatever. So you know that it wasn't checked for chametz. So since you can now do the mitzvah, it's going to be Erev Pesach, you can mitzvah on the night of the 14th. Beautiful, excellent, wonderful. That's not a question, because everybody wants to be able to do the mitzvah themselves. But what about a case of a town where they do usually normatively hire people to do bedikas chametz? So the nichalei leinish says Abaye, no, it's not even a question there. The nichalei leinish l'kiyum mitzvah b'money, because even if you're going to go out and hire somebody, people want to be able to do the mitzvah with their own money. Meaning there's a geschmack in knowing that I made sure that this mitzvah was taken care of. This is it's an interesting question, philosophically speaking. What are the mitzvahs that people get most excited about? What are the mitzvahs that people get most excited about? So you see, for example, that people will spend a lot of money on Pesach. People spend a lot of money on Shuas, making sure that they have a great tikkun lel. People will spend a lot of money on Sukkot, making sure that they have the most muhudadik esrog. So says Abaye, it's not a mekach tas. He might be upset with you that you didn't tell him. He might be upset with you. He might say, I need a discount, because of the lack of information. But for the mitzvah, he's happy to pay. That's how Abaye says it's not a mekach tas, it's not a fraudulent sale. The sale is still a good sale. Rashi points out here, And if the guy is coming along and saying, you didn't check for chametz and therefore it's fraudulent sale, he says that it's a giveaway that he found something else that's a problem. Meaning this is an excuse. It's not the reason. Meaning nobody would invalidate the rental agreement because of the bedika. There might be other reasons. And that's the excuse. But that's not a good enough excuse. So, Tanan Hasan, we have a brisa that says as follows. Meir says, Oichlin kol chamish. So now we're getting into the kishkas of what happens on Erev Pesach itself and where the Isur Chametz begins and ends. Says Rabbi Meir, Oichlin kol chamish, you can eat all of the 5th hour, v'sarfim mitchila sheish, and burn chametz at the beginning of the 6th hour. Let's just spell out exactly what this means. So on a day that's 6 to 6, meaning 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., the first hour of the day is the hour between 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. And midday is at the end of the 6th hour, beginning of the 7th hour. That is 12 noon. That's the end of the 6th hour and beginning of the 7th. Says Rameir, the halacha is that oichlin kol chamish. You can eat chametz all of the 5th hour of the day, v'sarfim mitchila sheish, and then you burn your chametz at 11 a.m. Rabbi Yehuda says oichlin kol arba. No, you can only eat up until the first 4 hours of the day, up until that would be 10 a.m. V'toilin kol chamish, and then you wait. You hang around. Nobody's doing anything with chametz for the duration of hour number 5, meaning that would be 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then you burn the chametz at the beginning of the 6th hour at 11 a.m. Because everybody agrees. Everybody agrees that chametz is also from the 6th hour of the day and onwards. That's the cutoff time that everybody agrees chametz is asur from midday onwards. Now, where do we know this halacha from? Where do we know that chametz is asur like this? Amar Abaye says, Trei kroi ksiv. There are 2 psukim that talk about chametz. Ksiv, the pasuk says, Shivas yamim, for 7 days. Se'or lo yimatzei bebateichem. Yeast should not be found in your house. Se'or, the best definition of se'or is sourdough starter. Right? Anybody that during COVID was figuring out how to make sourdough bread, so you might remember, sourdough starter is that stuff that goes in the jar that sits on the counter that you have to treat like a pet, right? That's called se'or. Shivasam se'or yimatzei bebateichem. For 7 days, se'or, that is leaven, should not be found in your home. That's the yeast. Uksiv, and the pasuk says, Ach b'yom harishon, and on the first day, tashbisu se'or mibateichem. You should destroy se'or from your house. So, 2 psukim, 1 pasuk tells us 7 days you should not find chametz in your house, and on the first day you should destroy chametz from your house. How does this make any sense? Meaning, for 7 days you're not supposed to find any chametz. Se'or shouldn't be found in your house at all. And on the first day, tashbisu se'or mibateichem, you have to destroy chametz from your house. How do you destroy the chametz that's not found in your house? How does this make any sense? It means that the beer, that the destruction of the chametz has to be already on the 14th. That has to be a day before. Says the Gemara, how do you know? There's another solution to this problem. Maybe you could say that what we are including is the night of Leil HaSeder, of the 15th of the month of Nisan, that is the time that you are going to do beer, that you're going to do beer, you're going to burn your chametz at the Seder. How? Maybe I would have thought Yomim ksiv, Shivas Yomim, that you're not allowed to have any chametz in your home for 7 days. Maybe it's only in the days. Yomim ksiv, Yomim in. For 7 days, I'm not allowed to have chametz. Leilos, no. But there's no restriction on the nights. Kamash malan afilu leilos. No, now it's coming to tell me even at night I'm not allowed to. Meaning, ach b'yom harishon tasbis means that I have to make sure that I've destroyed the chametz at night as well. There's an isur chametz balayla. So says the Gemara, no, you don't need a pasuk to tell you that. The ha'idkish, and this is going on to here, and all of the ha'idkish hashbasa sa'ar la'achilas chametz. Ve'achilas chametz la'achilas matzah. Because as we are going to discuss, as Hashem Yisbarach in tomorrow's Amud, there is a hekesh, there is a juxtaposition between a number of different things, and we're going to discuss how all of these hekeshim work. What we have is a hekesh, a juxtaposition of hashbasas sa'ar, the destruction of yeast, to the prohibition of achilas chametz, of eating chametz, and achilas chametz, and the prohibition of achilas chametz, la'achilas matzah, to the obligation of eating matzah. And all of these things are going to be correlated and connected to each other, and we're going to be able to learn specific halachas from them. The upshot of this whole thing is that we're then going to learn, and this is our bias proof, we're then going to be able to prove that the pasuk that says that you have to destroy the chametz on Erev Pesach, because the word yomim, we already know, includes all 24-hour periods. Now, we should, from the beginning of Pesach until the end of Pesach, that is all taken care of Shivas Yomim. It doesn't only mean daytime, and we didn't need the pasuk of Hashbasas Sa'ar, of destruction of Sa'ar, to tell us that it includes the nights, because we're going to see all of this. It is worth pointing out, because everybody's probably wondering, what do you mean that Yomim all of a sudden means daytime? So the Ibn Ezra writes at the beginning of Bereshis that Vahi Erev Vahi Boker Yom, that the word Yom means a lot of things. Sometimes the word Yom means from day and night. Sometimes it means daytime. Sometimes it means the working day. Sometimes it meaning, if I say I'll do it by the end of the day, does that mean midnight, or does that mean by 5 p.m.? I'll get it to you in a day. Does that mean in a daytime? Does that mean by this time tomorrow? Does it mean by the end of tomorrow? Meaning, Yom could mean a lot of different things. So Shivas Yomim, what does Yomim mean? What does the din of Yomim mean? We don't know. We don't know, and we had learned already before that bris milah, for example, needs to be on Yom Hashmini. It has to be on the 8th day. But Yom Hashmini Yimal Basar L'Sai. But you can't do it at night. It has to be during the day. It has to be Yom. So sometimes Yom tells us daytime, and sometimes Yom tells us a 24-hour period, and that is what the Gemara is challenging and questioning over here. And we're going to conclude, as we'll see, at least from this limud, that Shivas Yomim includes night and day, and therefore we have the pasuk of Ach B'Yom Harishon Tashbisu, that the mitzvah of getting rid of chametz is then going to apply to Erev Pesach, the 14th of the month of Nisan. We will continue tomorrow. Hope everybody had a beautiful Shabbos, and we'll see you later. Goodbye.